the entire idea behind representative democracy is that the will of the people is heard, that whatever the people want is how the government represent them. If you don't have a representative democracy in which the voice of the people is what's ultimately heard, your government's totally illegitimate. And that's what we're seeing in Canada today. There have never been poll numbers as overwhelming. Canadians are against continually bringing in over 1 million new citizens to this country here. It has decimated our economy. It has decimated our culture. It has transformed this country so radically over the past 10 years. It's not recognizable from what it was 10 years ago. I know people who visit Canada infrequently. I've lived in Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto. My God, walking around our cities, the transformation is shocking. The open crack smoking, the 1 in every 2 women have a hijab on, believe in Sharia law, the hate mobs on our streets. Thank God they don't like the cold, so you don't see it as much during the winter. But the Canadian people have never been standing so strongly against immigration. We used to be the most, you can't say Canadians are racist, xenophobes, whatever ist you want to throw at it. The Canadians have always been the most welcoming to immigrants in the world, but our government has pushed us too far. This past decade of liberal lunacy, literally unprecedented world historically levels of immigration. Over 1 in 4 Canadians are now first generation. 26.4% of our total population is now first generation. You cannot run a society like this. It's impossible, and it totally ignores history. Look at what happened in Lebanon. Look at what happened in Argentina. These countries where they had comparable, nobody's been as extreme as what Canada's been, but comparable immigration to what we have. And the Canadian people are fed up. It is now nearly 7 in 10 Canadians say they would support a full-on moratorium, a total stop, not a small reduction, a total stop to immigration. And what did the government of Canada do? Mark Carney has announced they are allowing another 1.5 million people in the country. This is after 4 years of between 1.2 and 1.5 million people coming in. Another 1.5, and then his so-called reduction is a 2% reduction. It's absolutely nothing. This government is no longer legitimate. This is not representing the will of the people. Mark Carney is representing the will of an incredibly small global elite, WF, Davos, Brookfield Asset Management, people who make money hand over fist when you flood the zone with supply, which is what we're doing in Canada. How can you possibly justify, when you have a housing crisis, they're building their estimate, and you know they're not even going to hit their estimate, is 225,000 housing builds in the year 2025. They're bringing in 1.5 million people, and we already have a housing crisis. I'm no economist. I'm no Mark Carney, who was governor of the Bank of England. But that math is not making much sense to me. How, when we already have an affordability crisis, is bringing in 1.3 million more people than the number of houses that are being built going to work, going to help the Canadian people? And the answer is, it definitively is not. It is not to help the Canadian people. It is to help people like Mark Carney and Brookfield Asset Management, who own billions of dollars worth of houses and condos in this country, and they need that line to keep going up. The line that started going up when Trudeau was elected. You look at our GDP per capita, you look at our average housing and rental prices. In 2015, when Trudeau was elected, we were about on par with the United States. It has been an absolute catastrophe since the communists came in and they decided they're going to flood the zone with immigrants. And of course, they can't get anything built. They're not builders. You think Trudeau has ever done anything in private industry? You think Carney has ever done anything besides rip people off with his green grip BS, a dead-eyed bug? No, of course not. Then Trudeau gets elected 2016. Ever since then, we've gone the total opposite direction of the US. Whether you're talking GDP per capita, whether you're talking affordability, in terms of rentals, in terms of housing, the Canadian people have had enough. We live in a representative democracy. We do not want another 1.5 million people coming into the country in 2025. Then 2026, they say we're reducing immigration in 2026. Guess how much? 1.4. They're barely reducing it. It's insane. This is an oligarchy. This is a government that is looking out for the people at the very top. All this centralized spending, which we already definitively know Look at the Soviet Union. Look at all the failures of communism. We definitively know this central spending doesn't work. It's a grift that gets a small percentage of people incredibly rich. And that's what we're seeing in Canada. That's what we're seeing with Mark Carney. We need a revolution in this country. The government clearly does not look at polls, does not give two craps. You look at the way that Mark Carney talks to the media, you can tell the elitist thinks that it's below him to have to go speak to the lowly media. His entire election process, the way that he so-called won the Liberal nomination process, where they kicked out the only candidate who was willing to be critical of him, only about 300,000 in a country of 41 million people want to vote. He was much more so installed than he was actually elected. And then he never would have won prime minister. He never would have won becoming prime minister of Canada had the Liberals not flooded the zone with 8 million people in the past decade. He wouldn't have even been close. If you look at Canadians who are at least second generation, have spent their entire lives in Canada, Poilievre always overwhelmingly won. It's immigrants who vote for these Liberals. That's what's perhaps the most nefarious part of it all, is they bring all these people in and over 85% of the time they vote Liberal. So they're literally changing the political makeup of the country. When they're importing all these people, not only are they stealing your jobs, not only are they radically transforming the culture, they're also voting Liberal overwhelmingly. So that's how the Liberals have a mill of people continually coming in the country, and they know they're going to vote Liberal, and they're literally transforming the country by transforming our demographics so rapidly. It's time for Canadians to stand up, put our foot down, and say enough is enough, because if we don't do this right now, I can only imagine, my God, 2-3 more years of this insane demographic change. That's why I've started the Fight for Canada party. I'm getting all the paperwork submitted. Very excited. Lends credibility to the name, because we need to really get people who are willing to be aggressive and call these crooks out, because that's exactly what they are. They're crooks who are stealing the livelihood, stealing the ability to live a decent life for a Canadian citizen. Our GDP per capita shockingly has dropped 6 quarters in a row. We're in a recession. GDP has dropped 2 quarters in a row. And there's no excuse for it in a country as resource-rich as Canada. There's absolutely no excuse. This mass immigration, everybody knows, every long-term Canadian knows, it has been terrible for this country over the past 10 years. It has to stop, and it has to stop right now. We are fed up. The Canadian government exists to serve us. Otherwise, they are illegitimate, and that's exactly what they are right now. The Liberal Party of Canada, the Liberal government of Canada, is totally illegitimate. They are not executing the will of people. Please like, share, subscribe, join, become a member. More information coming on the Fight for Canada party. We need to keep being as loud as we can, get these crooks to reverse their policies, because what we are seeing is an invasion of this country, and it's sponsored by people like Mark Carney, who could give 2 shits.